Hello, you're watching A News. I'm Dilek Tuna. These are the top stories. Putin proposes direct talks with Ukraine on the 15th of May in Istanbul. Zelensky says Kyiv is ready. A fragile ceasefire holds between India and Pakistan as Trump offers more help. The fourth round of US-Iran nuclear talks concludes in Oman. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Sunday proposed direct talks with Ukraine aimed at ending the war and said he would speak to Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan about facilitating the talks. The proposal was welcomed by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who said Kyiv was willing to talk, but Moscow must agree to a ceasefire.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has proposed direct peace talks with Ukraine to be held in Istanbul on May 15th, stating they would occur without preconditions and aim to eliminate the root causes of the war and achieve lasting peace.
So despite everything, we propose to the authorities in Kyiv to resume the negotiations that they interrupted at the end of 2022, to resume direct talks. And I should like to emphasize without any preconditions. We propose that they begin without delay as early as next Thursday, 15th May, in Istanbul, where they were held earlier and where they were interrupted.
The offer comes in response to a major push by Western leaders, including those of the UK, France, Germany, Poland and Ukraine, who met in Kyiv on Saturday and called for an unconditional 30-day ceasefire beginning May 12th.
And so all of us here, together with the US, are calling Putin out. If he's serious about peace, then he has a chance to show it now. No more ifs and buts, no more conditions and delays.
This ceasefire is intended to last 30 days on land, in the air and at sea, with monitoring provided mainly by the United States of America.
Backed by US President Donald Trump, the leaders warned Moscow that failure to comply would result in sweeping new sanctions targeting its energy and banking sectors. In the event of a violation of this ceasefire, we have agreed that massive sanctions would be prepared and coordinated between Europeans and Americans. Putin dismissed European ultimatums but said Russia is open to talks and a possible truce, insisting any ceasefire must be mutual and that Western military aid to Ukraine must stop. Russia said it is preparing a delegation for the Istanbul talks and awaits a formal response from Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in a post on X, welcomed Russia's shift in tone and urged Moscow to commit to a full and lasting ceasefire starting since Monday, saying Ukraine is ready to respond.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Russian President Vladimir Putin held a phone call to discuss bilateral ties and regional issues. During the conversation, Erdogan welcomed Putin's recent statement on resuming peace talks with Ukraine in Istanbul and reaffirmed Turkey's readiness to host direct negotiations aimed at a lasting resolution. According to Erdogan's office, the Turkish leader stressed that a new window of opportunity has opened for peace and that a comprehensive ceasefire would create the necessary conditions for meaningful dialogue. US President Donald Trump says trade talks with China in Geneva have led to what he calls a total reset in a friendly and constructive way. Both sides wrapped up the first day of negotiations and are set to continue on Sunday.
Talks between top US and Chinese officials continued behind closed doors in Geneva on Saturday, as both sides try to ease tensions in a trade war that has shaken the global economy. US President Donald Trump took to his Truth Social platform, calling the talks a total reset and saying great progress was made, though he gave no specific details. Trump emphasized the need for China to open its market to American businesses, saying that would benefit both countries. The two delegations, led by U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng, met at the Swiss ambassador's residence in Geneva on Saturday. The meetings ended in the evening with no public statements and no confirmed steps toward lowering tariffs yet. Negotiations are expected to resume on Sunday as pressure mounts to resolve the standoff and avoid further damage to global trade.
A fragile ceasefire is holding between India and Pakistan after days of intense cross-border fighting, the worst in nearly 3 decades. US President Donald Trump says Washington will help the rivals find a long-term solution to the Kashmir conflict.
After 4 days of intense fighting, India and Pakistan have agreed to a fragile ceasefire, but tensions remain high. Artillery fire was reported just hours after the truce took effect, underscoring the volatility along the line of control. The ceasefire comes after a deadly escalation involving missile strikes, drone incursions, and shelling that killed nearly 70 people, most of them on the Pakistani side, and injured dozens more. The pause in hostilities was brokered with help from the United States and other nations. However, fresh explosions in Kashmir overnight have renewed fears the ceasefire could collapse. India accused Pakistan of breaking the truce and warned of a strong response. Pakistan reiterated its commitment to peace and called for restraint on both sides. US President Donald Trump welcomed the ceasefire, praised both nations' leadership, and offered to mediate the Kashmir dispute. He also announced plans to boost trade with both countries. Meanwhile, power has been restored in some border towns and daily life is slowly resuming. But residents remain wary, unsure how long the calm will last.
Earlier, we spoke with Qassar Nawab, chairman of the Belt and Road Initiative for Sustainable Development in Islamabad, who shared his insights on the fragile yet crucial role of diplomacy in the region following the ceasefire. He also highlighted the importance of international support for de-escalation and regional stability.
The ceasefire between India and Pakistan is a victory for diplomacy and a testament to Pakistan's commitment to dialogue as the only path to peace. Our armed forces, especially the Pakistan Air Force, responded with professionalism and precision under Article 51 of the United Nations Charter, exercising our inherent right to self-defense. India's recent unprovoked aggression aimed to assert regional dominance, but Pakistan's swift and proportionate response shattered the myth of India's military superiority and sent a clear message: we will defend our sovereignty decisively and lawfully. This moment will be remembered by India as the day their hegemonic sea designs were crushed by Pakistan's resolve. Their arrogance met our unity and strength. We thank the United States of America, Saudi Arabia, and all global partners who supported de-escalation. I personally extend deep gratitude to our brotherly nations, Azerbaijan, Turkey, and China. Azerbaijan's leadership, people, and media showed exemplary solidarity, reminding the world of our deep-rooted brotherhood and shared values. As a profound Pakistani, I reaffirm Pakistan's unwavering stand for peace, sovereignty, and regional cooperation.
The fourth round of talks between the United States and Iran wrapped up in Muscat, Oman, with discussions mediated once again by Omani Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi. According to Iranian media, the dialogue remained indirect, with messages exchanged through Omani officials. Iran's foreign ministry described the talks as difficult but useful, noting progress in clarifying each side's positions. Both Washington and Tehran have agreed to continue nuclear negotiations, with the next phase set to focus on technical issues. In his first Sunday address since being elected as head of the Catholic Church, Pope Leo XIV delivered a strong appeal for peace, urging world leaders to end ongoing conflicts and prevent further bloodshed.
The newly elected Pope Leo XIV has addressed thousands for the first time at the Vatican, using the occasion to urge global leaders to pursue peace and resolve ongoing conflicts. Speaking from St. Peter's Basilica to a crowd of 100,000, Pope Leo XIV echoed his predecessor, Pope Francis's peace appeals. Pope Leo voiced concern over Gaza, calling for a ceasefire and hostage release, and urged renewed efforts for lasting peace in Ukraine.
I carry in my heart the sufferings of the beloved Ukrainian people. Let every effort be made to achieve, as soon as possible, an authentic, just and lasting peace. May all prisoners be freed, and may children return to their families.
The Pope welcomed the India-Pakistan ceasefire and hoped for lasting peace.
I have instead welcomed with satisfaction the announcement of the ceasefire between India and Pakistan, and I hope that through upcoming negotiations, a lasting agreement can soon be reached.
Pope Leo, elected last Thursday following a two-day conclave after the passing of Pope Francis, thanked the crowd for their support. His formal inauguration is scheduled for the 18th of May in St. Peter's Square.
Maria Rodriguez Abalde reports more from Vatican City.
Pope Leo XIV led his first Regina Coeli at Marian prayer recited especially during the Easter season, rather than lead this prayer from a window of the Apostolic Palace, as Pope has customarily done on Sundays for the Angelus or Regina Coeli. He decided to appear again at the central balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, as he did after the Habemus Papam announcement on May 8th. 25,000 people gathered here to see and hear for the second time the new leader of the Catholic Church, and many more people are expected next Sunday for the inaugural public Mass. Political and religious leaders from all around the world are expected to attend, and yesterday, in his first outing as Pope, Leo XIV made a visit to a shrine dedicated to St. Augustinian in a small town outside of Rome, where he prayed before a famed icon housed there and met with members of the St. Augustinian order. And also, before coming back to Vatican, he stopped to pray at Pope Francis' tomb at St. Mary Major Basilica.
The fourth Copenhagen Climate Ministerial took place on the 7th and 8th of May, serving as a major milestone in the global push toward COP30 in Brazil. Ministers and leaders from around the world gathered to discuss national climate commitments, just transition pathways, adaptation and resilience, and climate finance through the Baku to Belém roadmap. A-News covered the event, featuring key interviews and insights from high-level participants involved in shaping the global climate agenda.
The Copenhagen Climate Ministerial marked a pivotal moment in the global effort toward the 2025 United Nations Climate Change Conference to be hosted in Belém, Brazil. Ministers and government leaders from 40 countries gathered in Copenhagen to discuss critical climate issues such as national climate commitments, just transition pathways, adaptation, resilience, and climate finance. The Baku to Belém roadmap emerged as a key framework for guiding the dialogue and collaboration in the lead-up to COP30. CEO of the 30th Conference of the Parties of the UNFCCC, Anna Tony said the meeting was a key step toward COP30. She noted that 21 countries have submitted their climate plans, while others aim to finish by September, highlighting the Amazon's tipping point and last year's passing of the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit. She stressed the need for urgent global cooperation.
We are learning both from Baku, with our colleagues from Azerbaijan, Mr. Babayev. Obviously, we learn also through the Troika from COP28. But for Brazil, this is a really important COP. We should remember that the Climate Convention was born in Brazil in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro. So now we're going around, and we will have again COP30 in Belém. So it goes through the full cycle now that we are now implementing the Paris Agreement. It's the first time that we will have a COP after, unfortunately, that we passed 1.5 degrees last year. That was the case. And in the Amazon, that is a tipping point. So
despite challenges, including the withdrawal of one country from the Paris Agreement, she emphasized that 197 nations remained committed to collective climate action. Damilola Ogunbiyi, CEO and Special Representative of the UN Secretary-General for Sustainable Energy for All, spoke about the importance of continuity in climate action. She highlighted the ongoing relationship between the COP30 and COP29 presidencies, pointing to the Baku to Belém roadmap as a key tool for building on previous commitments. She also called for urgent action, especially given the global challenges facing both developed and developing nations.
In COP29, we had some agreements, basically agreed on the Paris Agreement we'd been waiting for years. So taking that momentum in a time where, frankly, a lot is happening, and seeing that there's still two countries and the Troika with the UAE, who is here as well, so committed, focusing going on to a large developing country as well. As I am from an African country, it is really great to see that we're not just talking about the voices of a global north, we're also really focused on the developing and the emerging economies.
Dr. Dion Travers-George, Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment of South Africa, highlighted South Africa's key role in climate discussions, noting that COP29 showed global commitment to climate action despite geopolitical challenges.
I think if you roll back to before we had, it was pre-COP, before COP29, and then at COP, there was a narrative forming that, we're not sure what the United States is going to do. That was before the election. And what does that then mean? That COP29 will not be successful because the USA is not present. It was not so. In fact, the show carried on going. And I think what that demonstrated is that the mainstream of the world has in fact moved in a particular direction. We've also seen some elections, for example, in Canada and Australia, and it seems that I would like to maybe refer to it as the more sensible approach that you will find is that these are things that the problems facing the world, we need to work together. Multilateralism is very much alive, and we carry on going. And we saw the start of that at COP29, and I think that will carry on going. So yes, absolutely, it will get noisy, and it will get a lot noisier. But I think also, very importantly, what we're learning.
He also stated that Africa is moving in the right direction with clear objectives and agreed with the COP29 president to ignore distractions and stay focused. Turkish Deputy Minister of Environment, Fatma Varank, stressed that climate finance is the biggest obstacle to fast climate action. She explained that developed countries need funds to upgrade their industries, while developing nations need support to access renewable energy and digital technologies for their growing energy needs.
Developed countries need funds to transform their existing systems, while developing countries need access to renewable energy sources to meet growing energy demands. There is also a need for digitalization to support this technological shift. However, many countries lack the capacity to achieve this on their own. One of the biggest barriers remains the lack of financial support. Developed nations must transfer their capacity to developing or least developed countries. A major decision on climate finance was made at last year's climate summit in Azerbaijan. A global target was set to mobilize $1.3 trillion annually, with $300 billion of that allocated over the next decade to support developing nations. The focus over the past year has been on how to formalize this commitment, particularly through the Baku to Belém roadmap. We hope to see concrete results at COP30.
The outcomes of the Copenhagen Climate Ministerial reinforce the critical need for urgent collective action as the world moves toward COP30 in Belém, Brazil.
Turkey says it's ready to support peace efforts between Azerbaijan and Armenia. President Erdogan's advisor says Ankara is willing to play its part. In an interview with CNN Turk, Akif Çağatay Kılıç, the Turkish president's advisor on foreign policy and security, said Turkey is ready to do its part in helping finalize a peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia. He stressed that the final decision lies with the two countries, but added that Turkey supports the process in hopes of a stable and peaceful future for the region. There are several tracks in the peace process between Azerbaijan and Armenia, Azerbaijan's Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov told journalists. Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov noted that the text of the peace agreement was finalised in March and emphasised that Azerbaijan has legitimate expectations from Armenia. These include the removal of territorial claims against Azerbaijan from the Armenian constitution and the formal dissolution of the Minsk group, which is no longer needed following the resolution of the conflict. He added that Azerbaijan is closely monitoring developments and that contacts are ongoing. Afghanistan and Iran have taken a significant step toward deepening trade and industrial ties. Officials from both countries met in Kabul this week to discuss a wide range of initiatives aimed at strengthening economic cooperation. Our correspondent Tamim Bahis has the details from Kabul.
In Kabul, the acting Minister of Industry and Commerce Nuruddin Azizi met with Alireza Begdili, the acting head of the Iranian embassy, to chart a roadmap for stronger trade and industrial cooperation between the two neighbors. During the meeting, the two sides discussed plans to increase Afghanistan's exports to Iran, expand the role of the Joint Chamber of Commerce, establish joint industrial companies, and create a shared industrial free zone along the border. They also explored investment opportunities in key infrastructure projects, including the Kaf-Herat Railway. A statement from the Iranian embassy noted that officials from both countries reviewed plans for cooperation in trade and industry, with both sides expressing satisfaction over growing momentum and promising outlook for their partnership. The meeting also paved the way for an upcoming visit by Iranian's Minister of Industry, Mine and Trade to Afghanistan and the hosting of the 7th Joint Economic Cooperation Commission. Discussions also touched on holding a trilateral meeting between Afghanistan, Iran and India on the development of Chabahar Port, a key maritime hub located in southeastern Iran. Chabahar provided landlocked Afghanistan with vital access to international waters, bypassing Pakistan's ports. The port, which has been partially developed with Indian investment, is operational and handling cargo shipments, but remains under expansions to increase its capacity and connectivity. With trade routes and partnerships expanding, officials from both countries are optimistic about a future of closer economic collaboration. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for A News.
Tbilisi will host the 5th Silk Road Forum on the 22nd and 23rd of October, bringing together around 60 representatives from international organisations and governments. The forum aims to strengthen cooperation in international and regional trade, serving as a platform for dialogue among Silk Road Initiative countries, global institutions and the private sector. The event will feature thematic panels on transport, trade, tourism, energy and IT. It will run alongside the FinTech Summit, with Georgia's Ministry of Economy allocating over 1.9 million lari for both events. Ankara and Athens are setting their sights on deepening economic ties. Turkish and Greek officials say they're committed to boosting bilateral trade to $10 billion as cooperation expands across multiple sectors. The announcement came at the Turkey-Greece Business Forum held in Istanbul.
Cooperation between Ankara and Athens will expand across various sectors to help reach the $10 billion bilateral trade goal. Turkish Deputy Foreign Minister Mehmet Kemal Bozay said at the Turkey-Greece Business Forum in Istanbul. Bozay said Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's 2023 visit to Greece resulted in an agreement with Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis to strengthen economic ties, and the two countries' foreign ministers have been working closely together since then. Bozay emphasized the importance of expanding cooperation beyond traditional trade, pointing to new opportunities in transportation, infrastructure, tourism, and green innovation.
Beyond trade and infrastructure, there are vast opportunities for collaboration in sectors such as energy, tourism, digital technologies, and green innovation. By combining our respective strengths, we can create synergies that drive sustainable development and economic resilience. Last year, tourism between our two countries reached record-breaking levels. A total of 1.1 million Turkish tourists visited Greece, and 680,000 Greek tourists traveled to Turkey by the end of 2024. These impressive numbers are the result of the positive climate in our bilateral relations.
Greek Deputy Foreign Minister for Economic Diplomacy Tassos Hadjivassiliou also highlighted the role of economic diplomacy and mutual respect.
Dear friends, cooperation in the energy sector can make a meaningful contribution to regional peace and stability. Energy projects that bring mutual benefit also play a vital role in enhancing security across our region, which is full of challenges and turbulences in that period of time. For example, dear friends, the Trans-Anatolian natural gas pipeline and the Trans-Adriatic pipeline, two key pillars of the Southern Gas Corridor, are landmark infrastructure projects standing as strong examples of successful international cooperation in the field of energy.
Both sides say the path forward depends on sincere dialogue and mutual benefit rooted in stability and international law.
That's the world news for the hour. Keep watching A News for more updates.